Good evening. I am Beverly Backrack, Chief Philanthropy Officer at the David Posnack Jewish Community Center. The J opened in the summer of 1988. Since that time, we have been serving all residents of the community, regardless of faith, ethnicity, age, or ability. The Philanthropy Department was established in 2016 to raise monies for all programs through annual giving, capital, endowed, and special event campaigns. Tonight, the David Posnack Philanthropy Team is hosting its first webinar. The purpose of this webinar is to highlight different ways a donor can give money to the J and save money at the same time. We don't always have to write a check or to give our credit card. Tonight, Mitch Stein with Chariot will talk about donor advised funds, or as people refer to it today as DAFs. But before our keynote speaker begins, I will introduce you to the Director of Philanthropy, Peter Rose, who will speak more about the David Posnack JCC and what we offer to the community. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to spending the next hour with you.
Thank you so much, Beverly. I am absolutely thrilled to be with you all today for our first J webinar. I cannot wait to dive into the heart of what makes the David Posnack JCC such a special place. It's our programs. Now, at RJ, we focus on 4 core areas that serve our entire community: children and family. Our early childhood programs, camps, and family-centered events create a foundation for learning, growth, and connection. Special services. Through inclusive programs like Murley's Gibberim United, Sunrise on Wheels, and our new Higher Ability, we make sure that every member of our community has access to opportunities regardless of their abilities. Arts, culture, and education. Whether it's a cultural event, educational lectures, or art exhibits, we bring people together to learn, celebrate, and connect. Sports and wellness. Fitness isn't just about physical health, it's about community. Our wellness programs and leagues keep people of all ages moving, healthy, and engaged in a lifestyle of well-being. These are more than just programs, they're lifelines, providing joy, growth, and community to all who come through our doors. Now, I'm honored to introduce our guest, Mitch Stein, who is here to guide us through how DAFs, or donor advised funds, can benefit you and help us support these programs. Take it away, Mitch.
Sure. Thanks so much, Peter. I really appreciate you having me. And nice to meet everyone tonight. I will just say, please ask questions in the chat and raise your hand or do anything if you need some questions answered. Happy to stop, and most importantly, want to make sure that this is helping you get the answers that you need. As Peter said, my name is Mitch Stein. I'm the head of strategy at Chariot. We are a donor advised funds payment company. So we don't run any one specific DAF. We are the network and payment rails and infrastructure that all these different donor advised funds and nonprofits can use. We power a payment option called DAF Pay, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but you might see that on more donation forms and campaign pages. Anywhere you see DAF Pay, you can pay with a donor advised fund in a donation form even more easily than you would a credit card. I've been around philanthropy and giving for a long time. I started off my career as an investment banker at Goldman Sachs for 7 years. And I, during that time, got very passionate about philanthropy and fundraising. I am an active fundraiser for the LGBT Center and Cycle for the Cause in New York City. I'm actually doing that bike ride this weekend. I'm here in Boston doing a 275-mile bike ride tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday, to raise money for the Northeast AIDS Ride. So been doing that since 2016. And then I also jumped full-time in my career into nonprofit technology at a prior startup, and then joined the Chariot team to focus on DAFs and donor advised fund fundraising and helping nonprofits and donors be more generous and be smarter with their finances at the same time. So excited to talk to you all today. Now, I think when it comes to donor advised funds, I don't know if folks attending here have heard of them before, or you have questions, or maybe you have an inkling of what they are, but you're not totally sure. You're in the right place. I think the easiest way to think about a donor advised fund is that it's very similar to a 401k for your retirement, or an HSA for your healthcare costs. That's a health savings account. Those are both tax advantaged structures and investment accounts and savings accounts for a restricted purpose. For your 401k, that's for your retirement, and for your HSA, that's for healthcare costs. And a DAF is a tax advantage investment account for your giving. So you contribute money into a donor advised fund, cash, or that can be in the form of assets. So that could be appreciated securities like stock or mutual funds, and also can even be more liquid assets. You can sometimes, I've heard of people contributing art, or certain real estate investments. It's pretty flexible depending on where you hold your DAF, but you get the tax write-off when you contribute that into your donor advised fund. And then the money in the account can be invested in the market. So it's growing with the market over time. And then you can use your DAF, your donor advised fund, whenever you want to make a grant. But you have to use it supporting 501c3 DAF eligible nonprofits. So that is the big difference, is that DAFs are restricted and you can't take money back out of it once you've put it in there. You've already received that tax benefit. So once it's in there, it has to ultimately go to philanthropy. There isn't a specific deadline, but we see that most people that set up DAFs, it's kind of like a really simplified foundation. It's a really accessible vehicle that anyone can use, where you can streamline all your giving in one place. You no longer are like looking up tax receipts from a bunch of different credit card gifts. It all happens centrally in one account. And because you're getting those tax benefits and you're keeping the funds invested, it ultimately increases your capacity for giving, and it really holds you accountable if you have a specific goal. So I personally use a donor advised fund. I use a tool called Daffy, DAFFY, and I have it automatically set up to put $100 into my DAF account every month. And that also gets matched by my employer. My employer happens to match DAF contributions. So that means I'm getting $200 into an account for giving that's then invested in the market. And that's just happening in the background. And anytime I'm inspired to give, I now have this ready pool of money to do so. And it's not coming out of my credit card bill that month. So I end up being a lot more generous, because it's like I have a gift card kind of sitting there to use for giving. That really changes my psychology of giving. I'm like excited to go use it. I have it there. I have it ready. And so I end up finding myself ready, willing, and able to give when I'm solicited by friends or organizations I've supported in the past, things I'm a member of, schools, etc. There's a lot of research that's been done on how it really increases both the size of gifts people make and the number of organizations they support, and just by making them more intentional with their giving. I think what's an important thing to cover, if you'll just go back for 1 second, Peter, I just wanted to hit on the size of the market. I think you all may be attending this because you've heard of DAFs, and all of a sudden it feels like more and more people are talking about them. So while only 17% of Americans from a survey I wrote this year are familiar with donor advised funds, they are growing really quickly, and more people really should be taking advantage of them. Over the past 10 years, we've seen that the total amount of assets in donor advised funds has grown by 5x. So there's over 230 billion that folks have set aside specifically for giving in DAFs. And the amount that's leaving donor advised funds this year has also been accelerating. It's up 6x since 2012. So that over $50 billion was granted out of DAFs to nonprofits in 2022, the latest full year we have data on. And it's now about a fifth of overall individual giving is coming from donor advised fund accounts. So it is a really sizable portion of philanthropy, with more and more people adopting it. And I think, we have the word flexibility on the page. That's definitely something you hear from anyone that's using a DAF or is a big fan of it. It just is extremely flexible. You've done the contribution already. And so now you can give when you want, and you're not doing that budgeting calculation in the same way. And it's also just really low admin to take care of. If you want to go to the next slide. And I think we mentioned a little bit about simplifying and streamlining giving. Those tax savings really benefit your growth. I would just add to some specific examples, like especially if you work with a financial advisor, they can help you even optimize the things that you're contributing into your DAF as part of your tax strategy at year end. So, for example, let's say you happen to make an investment in NVIDIA stock 10 years ago. Good for you. You're feeling pretty good about yourself. They're up about 100x thanks to the AI boom we're seeing, and they make all those chips for AI computing. But if you had one of those shares that's literally gone up 100x in value, you could contribute some of them to a DAF to avoid that capital gains tax, because you would have a pretty significant capital gains bill if you just sold it out in the market. But any of those appreciated assets that you're contributing, you avoid all the capital gains tax. You get to write off the full amount from your taxes, and it grows tax free in the account. So you might even hear people talk about these as triple tax advantage vehicles. And there's really nothing else like it out there in personal finance. So financial advisors more and more are really educating their clients on this, promoting it. And I think it allows people to hold their giving in a similar place as they're both physically, like you can hold your giving account. If you do your brokerage at Fidelity or Schwab, you can have your donor advised funds right next to it. But also mentally, it's your philanthropy and your giving is a part of your investment portfolio. It's a part of your finances in a core way. And I think keeping it in that place helps really put priority on it. And so it ends up leaving people much more intentional with their giving, much more engaged with the organizations they support. There was a study that literally just came out earlier today that was a survey of donor advised fund donors, and 97% of them said that they do research before they make a gift. Now, it can be simple research like Googling an organization or maybe asking a friend, but they're thoughtful, they're intentional, they're smart donors making smart choices, both about their finances and their giving. And if that sounds like you, then it's a good tool for your philanthropy. I guess, Peter or Beverly, I'm curious, does that resonate with how you've heard about donor advised funds being used and the donors you know?
Absolutely. And, with the members that we have here, they definitely do the research. I know that we find that they ask a lot of questions because they really want to be confident that they can see results and the impact, and they want to hear about the impact. Wouldn't you agree, Beverly?
Well, it is a perfect place for the David Posner JCC, because as you heard from Peter, we have so many different programs and everything. So when you give to the J, it's like giving to a university. You can give to any specific program that you want. So people today really seem to, rather than just general giving, really want to know what you do.
Absolutely. I'm going to jump back, Mitch, to the share the deck. Sorry, technical difficulties. Here we go.
So we were talking a bit about some of the characteristics of donor advised fund donors. We're learning more and more. There's more and more research. There's now over 3 million people that use donor advised funds for all these benefits that we've been talking about. But I would say the three most consistent features of a DAF donor I've spoken to hundreds of people that use DAFs. And the three that really come to mind are smart. These folks are making the smart choice. They're engaged. They are in the same way that they want to make the smart choice when they buy, a house or a pair of shoes. Like they're just folks that think about doing the smart thing with their money. And so that extends to their giving, and they see their DAF as a way to optimize their giving. they're also really intentional. You know, it's while this is helpful in streamlining giving, like any other financial account, you need to set it up. You need to sign up. You take a couple extra steps. You need to decide how to fund it. And so it's relatively easy, but us as humans, like taking extra steps is work. And so when someone has gone to do those steps and set up a specific account, they're saying something about themselves, right? Like they really care about their giving. They really care about supporting the causes they care about. And they're willing to go the extra mile to set up this giving account to make sure they're maximizing their generosity. So I would describe those folks as highly intentional. And I think they're generally very data driven. We talked about the desire to do research, but I would say even more specifically, they want to know the numbers. They want to know the return on their investment, because this is a investment account for them alongside their regular investment and savings accounts. And so when they use it, they're looking for that return in a similar way from the organizations they support. Um, and I think it's become clear from more research that's coming out that these folks are also very motivated by story and by visuals and just anything that helps them better understand the impact of their dollar spent. Because they're smart and intentional and data driven, they're highly focused on that impact and getting specific. And I think that's what they're looking for. And that can be supporting an organization. Beverly mentioned a specific program. We often see people motivated by a friend or a family member that's doing a specific fundraiser. We've talked a lot about bike rides and bike fundraising. The ability to see the impact that you can have on a person or a community is so powerful, and that drives so much DAP usage. We also recently did a research project this year that Chariot led with some folks at K2D Strategies, which is a consulting firm that works with nonprofits as well. And it was a pretty groundbreaking amount of research. We analyzed 78 million different transactions from 20 different organizations around the country over a 5-year period. That included some of the largest organizations in the country: American Cancer Society, Alzheimer's Association, International Rescue Committee, but also some organizations in that $5 to $10 million range. And it was amazing to see the consistency at small and large organizations across donor behavior when they used a donor advised fund versus when they didn't give through a donor advised fund. And the three most striking points of comparison for me were, number one, the loyalty. Once someone started using their DAF, their average retention rate to support the same organization year over year was about 15 percentage points. That's a huge difference. And I think it just goes to reflect that intentionality. Once they start supporting an organization, they mean it and they care. And so they're highly likely to stay on board. I also think it's a function of having all of your giving in one place. So when you're looking back in your portal, it's easy to see who you supported last year and remake that gift, with a few clicks. So it keeps people accountable and coming back, and it's structured in that way. The other thing is very consistent. We saw that over 30% of these DAP donors in the study gave 2 or more gifts per year to the same organization. So they're showing up, right? It's not just in December. They also want to support the event in the spring or someone's campaign in the summer. These are consistent and frequent donors. They're also highly generous. This might be the most obvious one, but even when we stripped out the major gifts, so gifts over $25,000, so we were only looking at gifts smaller than that, the comparison between DAF and non-DAF gift sizes was 20x. So it really does result in folks making much larger gifts, which is obviously important for great causes that we care about. And then something that I found particularly compelling from the data, and something we had really a first look at, was, okay, we get that DAF donors, maybe they're just already wealthy or they're already generous, and that's why, and they're already loyal. And how do we know it was the DAF that caused those stats we saw on the prior page? But what was really cool was tracking the same donor over multiple years for these organizations in the study and able to see what changes if someone went from not using a DAF to starting to use a DAF to the same person and the same organization. The only thing that changed from one year to the next is they started supporting for their donor advised fund. And the average increase was 96%. So it basically doubled their support of that benefiting nonprofit once they use a DAF. And it's interesting. I mean, that was from over 16,000 instances of this like conversion of a donor going from non-DAF to DAF to the same nonprofit. But the math kind of adds up, right? You think about the tax advantages and how much their tax savings could be, and maybe a little bit more for market growth and a little more for just staying accountable to your goals. It's like, yeah, I can see how this vehicle could add up to me ultimately giving twice as much to the causes I care about. And that's obviously a substantial difference in impact. And the other point here is just that many people do have donor advised funds, but ultimately don't use them. So if someone converted from using a credit card to use a DAF, we know it's oftentimes because they start off giving with a credit card, and then they sort of graduate that nonprofit to be someone they support from their DAF over time. And I think it's our goal as Chariot and the J and lots of nonprofits want to make sure for anyone who does have a DAF that they're using it whenever they can. If you've already set that money aside for giving, you'd much rather use that than a credit card. But sometimes we just instinctively go for that quick, like make a credit card gift online when you're asked. And that's a big reason why Chariot exists, is we want to make that easier to use your DAF in those moments too, but flagging that as an important priority, that anyone who is using a DAF, that you use it as often as possible. Some other interesting things I'll just flag from this study that we saw, and hopefully drives the point home of the importance of DAFs to nonprofit fundraising right now. You might have heard something about some of the challenges that the industry as a whole has faced with fundraising. The overall number of donors participating in giving each year is declining slightly. The total amount fundraised as a country across all 1 million nonprofits was relatively flat year over year last year. We're just in this bit of stagnant period, and we're also seeing some contraction in the number of donors participating, but those that are participating are often making larger gifts. A big driver of that trend is the prevalence of donor advised funds, where the folks that are sticking around are able to make much bigger gifts and driving the sustainability of nonprofits and their continued growth. So we were able within this study to break apart non-DAF giving and DAF giving and compare the two across the 20 participants. The median amount of growth in DAF revenue from 2019 to 2023 was over 200%. The median for non-DAF giving was 1%. So basically flat over that 5-year period for these participating organizations, meaning half of them actually had a decline in revenue outside of DAFs. But this growth in DAFs is so significant that for a third of the organizations, it fully offset that decline in non-DAF giving. So they're still growing and expanding and delivering more on their mission because of the value from DAF giving to that organization. And we just see that growth even more prominently in the gifts and number of gifts and number of donors, how quickly that's growing in the DAF column, but seeing these slight declines in non-DAF gifts and donors as well. And double clicking on the revenue itself, like apart from just the relative change on a percentage basis, thinking about it on an absolute level, and these, I realize these charts are a little small, but we can also share the report if you're interested in digging into the data. We put a lot of work into it, so I was excited when people can give it a read. But the median of among the participating organizations where DAF as a percentage of their total revenue was 12% by 2023. So that means over half of the organizations participating saw more than 10% of their total revenue coming from this vehicle, from donor advised funds. And we just see that. You can see on the right how that's moving up and to the right, even when we look at the distribution of all those participants. There's now 6 out of 20, so 30% of the participating organizations see over 20% of their revenue coming from DAFs. So just becoming a really substantial part of the overall revenue picture, which is why you'll be hearing more and more about it from the organizations you support, and a great opportunity to increase giving. Yeah, so how do people use DAFs? Obviously to support the J, that's a first and foremost, but yeah, you can donate to any DAF eligible organization. And in fact, folks that use donor advised funds give to a substantially larger number of organizations than folks who don't. And kind of when I was explaining my giving behavior earlier, it's just that ease with which the mental ease, right? You're not doing the incremental budgeting each time you're asked. You're almost like looking for ways to use your DAF. You have this account set aside, so you're excited and engaged whenever you can use it. So folks use these to donate to any DAF eligible organization. By and large, that is 501c3 charities. There are a couple small tax exempt organizations that can get qualification, but that's really the outlier. The most important distinction is anything that is a C4, so any politically affiliated organization or political campaign, you cannot use a donor advised fund for. So that's the important part. And things you can't use your DAF for, another important part is you cannot use your DAF for things that you get value in return for. So you can't use it to purchase a table at a gala or buy a vacation auction item, anything of significance that you're getting value for in return. You cannot use your DAF. So there is some tighter restriction there. So just something to be aware of. But I would also just note that more and more people use these also with family. The majority of DAF accounts are actually shared either with a couple or with a family. I hear stories all the time about parents that use their DAF and they have a quarterly meeting with their kids, and they sort of allocate a budget and say, let's talk about the organizations that you want to support, that you care about, and why. And really build a culture of philanthropy in their home via the DAF. And it kind of replicates what it could look like if you had a private foundation for your family and a board meeting where you reviewed grants you're going to make, but it's all been totally streamlined. You don't need to do any of the administration of the foundation. It's all handled by the DAF sponsor, and you just get to sit together and make those gifts. So it makes it a lot easier. So a big innovation in this space, and you might hear more about it, particularly if you start using your donor advised fund. Chariot built this payment option called DAF Pay, where you can, it's sort of like an express checkout, a Google Pay or Apple Pay on a donation form or a website, where it pulls up, these are the 3 screens you would see as you check out, but you don't need to leave the site and go log into your portal and answer a bunch of extra questions. You log into your DAF right here, you decide how much you want to give, and you click submit. And then the organization knows about the gift right away. They know your email, so they can thank you, and you're not trying to track down who this gift was from when it arrives a few weeks later. And it really helps connect the overall process and make sure that you feel the love from the organizations you're supporting. Because we hear from many DAF donors that while they appreciate all these benefits and how it's administered and increasing their giving, but sometimes they kind of gripe about the fact they don't end up hearing from the organization they supported. Trust that it's not that the organization doesn't want to thank you. It's just when you give it through your portal, often they don't have contact information, and they're also getting it many weeks later when the gift actually arrives. So this really helps close the loop there and make it a more connected process. So hopefully you'll be seeing DAF Pay on some more fundraisers that you're participating in, and encourage you all to use it when you do. Some examples where we've been able to increase and spur more DAF giving with DAF Pay and bring it into places that were otherwise hard because it's a specific time-based thing, or for a specific like rider on a bike ride, for example. So when you submit through your portal, it's either delayed and or hard to tie to that specific use case or fundraisers page at a much larger organization. So the Pan Mass Challenge is one example. They are a large bike ride across the state of Massachusetts. They raise money for Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. And this year they've raised over $3.5 million just through DAF Pay, those digital DAF checkout gifts, from 5,000 different donors. Another important area is in crisis response. So when a hurricane happens or a humanitarian crisis, that organization wants to respond and deploy resources immediately. And if you go into your DAF and recommend a grant, they're not going to know about it for several weeks. So they can't incorporate it into their immediate response. But DAF Pay is enabled on GoFundMe eligible charitable fundraising pages in response to crisis, where the gift is included in that total, in the thermometer, in their budgeting in real time, and you're really a part of the response. And other time-based things like giving days are another big one where we hear a lot about people using DAFs, needing to do some back and forth with the organization, like it's coming, included in the giving day total, etc. This allows it all to be automated. You see your gift in real time on the fundraising page, and drives a big difference when that is the case. Community Rowing is an organization that has used this and sees over 30% of their fundraising now happening through those digital DAF gifts. And events, in-person events are a big one too. You might see the Jewish Family Service in Dallas was one that put a QR code up on the big screen at a luncheon they had. And they got about 30% of their fundraising in the room from folks checking out with that QR code on their phone to give from their DAF. So very powerful. I know I've been talking for a little bit. Peter, Beverly, do you have any questions I can answer? Happy to, before I jump into the next piece.
Yeah, we're happy to break it up a little bit. Let me go ahead and remove Spotlight. There we go. Hey, you know, what I find most fascinating is that it doesn't matter big or small. You know, the big dollar donors, the small dollar donors can benefit directly by utilizing the DAF. Like you said, they get the tax advantage. You said a triple tax advantage up front, and then they're able to do it. Now, one of the questions that came in from the Q&A, I'll just throw at you now because you mentioned that certain things that can't be used. So it was saying, can it be used to support a specific program? So the example you gave was you cannot use it to support a seat at a gala. So we have just launched our new art society. So here at our J, somebody could use a DAF in support of our arts, culture, and education department and in support of the different programs. But as far as becoming a member of the art society where they get to go to see all these amazing shows and theater and different stuff, that you're saying they wouldn't be able to use it, just to clarify.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to check with your lawyers because the IRS is not crystal clear and bright lined on this, but by and large, it's defined as if the financial benefit from a gift is less than $75, then that's okay. So like if you have a membership and folks get a hat or something and like some stickers, like that's fine. You know, it's a threshold question. But if the value is, you know, if those tickets are worth hundreds of dollars in total, then I think that would probably be a challenge. But it's always a good thing to ask your lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, so I always have to give that disclaimer.
I will say something. We do have a lot of people, not a lot, but many, that do pay their donations through DAFs and all that. But the financial institutions that they're with are very serious about this. And oftentimes, for example, if it's for a golf tournament or something like that, and people want to use their DAFs, they do call me as the chief philanthropy officer just to verify what that event is all about. So they do take it seriously because I've been called several times, just to make sure that it's for charity and how much goes to charity and that kind of thing, et cetera. So basically, the institutions are on top of this because of tax reasons, because people have gotten tax benefits for this.
Yes, absolutely. They do the diligence, and for good reason, right? It's definitely restricted funds. There's a lot of these benefits, but it is watched carefully because of those benefits that people get from it. So it's a great question, and I know it comes up a lot, and I just think it's I think not enough folks when they set up the DAF are fully understand all those limitations. So um, it's just good to make sure people are aware of that.
And you have to make sure each, if anybody's on this listening that represents a nonprofit organization, when you write the thank you letter, you have to make sure that you don't give them another tax deduction. I think that's a very valid point to make because they already got the tax deduction when they set up the DAF. So when you get the thank you letter, it's not, you don't have the bottom part that is the tax deduction again.
Correct. Very, very important. And you shouldn't ask for a tax deduction as well if you're the donor.
Want to thank people. So I'm just
It
letting
should
the
just be-
people that think to know that you can't double dip. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Hey, Mitch, I'm gonna go ahead and share. We got a couple slides left, folks, before we open up the question and answer. So we'll jump on in. Let me get that back up for you. So we were gonna have you share some of the most ways that people can get the most out of their donor advised funds.
Yeah, so top tips for donors here, and ways that you can both get the most out of your DAF and also make sure that the organizations you're supporting are getting the most out of your gift too. Any extra detail you can put in the notes field just goes a really long way. Like I mentioned earlier, oftentimes these DAFs aren't sharing a ton of information with the organizations they're sending the money to. So including your full name, if it is for a program, like we've mentioned, like specifying that, if it is, if you can provide your email or just any of those details really help folks that are entering these gifts into their systems, make sure it's all getting to the right place. Another tip is just if it is an organization you plan on supporting regularly, you can actually set that as a recurring gift. So it happens monthly, quarterly, annually. There are 1,100 different donor advised fund providers. So I can't speak to every platform, but I know a lot of them do have that recurring capability. Another big thing is that to keep in mind that you do need to name a beneficiary to your DAP if you were to pass away. If you don't name a beneficiary, the entity that's managing your DAP account just takes it and is part of their charitable giving, which I don't think anyone really wants, unless if you have it at a community foundation and you are intentionally wanting to pass it on to them, that's fine. But I know a lot of people find out from me or others that they actually should and could name a beneficiary, and so you can go ahead and name some of the organizations that you care about, like the J, as a beneficiary to your DAP in the event that you were to pass away, and make sure that money gets to them. Another big thing is if you work for a company that offers employee matching, many of them will also match gifts from your DAF to an organization, not just a credit card gift. So you can check and make sure. Again, there's thousands of different employee matching programs, so you want to check yours, but a lot of them do match those kinds of grants out of a donor advised fund account. So yeah, and just some more things on the radar when it comes to DAF giving. We always encourage people to be spreading the word about the value of DAFs. This time of year, as we're getting into year end, is when folks are thinking about tax planning and kind of getting things in order. So when you're having those meetings with your financial advisor, ask them about it, get their thoughts, and see if it sounds like a good fit for you. And it's just a good time to be looking into it. There's also a big event coming up for DAFs more broadly. The first ever National Giving Day dedicated to donor advised funds is happening on October 10th. So you may be hearing about that from organizations you support. Chariot has partnered with hundreds of nonprofits around the country to bring this to life and really shine a light on the power of DAF giving and activate a collective giving moment of folks that use donor advised funds. So be on the lookout for that on October 10th. And it's just a good kickoff to the giving season where we have big campaigns on Giving Tuesday, which is a little later this year. It's actually in the beginning of December. And lots of good things happening in December. I don't know. I'm sure Peter, you want to talk a bit about what's happening at the J specifically in that time frame.
Well, thank you so much, Mitch. A lot of great information, incredibly informative, and really shows us how donor advised funds can maximize both our financial and philanthropic goals. I hope all the individuals on the call have taken away some stuff. Before we get into the full Q&A, I want to highlight something very special. On December 3rd this year, as you mentioned, is Giving Tuesday. And our Giving Tuesday campaign for this year, we will once again focus on raising funds for Sunrise on Wheels. This incredible program brings joys and entertainment to children undergoing treatment for cancer. Here's the exciting part for us is people don't have to wait till December 3rd to make a difference. We're inviting our attendees today to help us kick off our Giving Tuesday early by using their donor advised fund or other preferred method of giving. It is quick, it's easy, and it ensures your support gets to the children who need it most. People can scan the QR code. They can simply text hashtag or tic-tac-toe symbol or pound symbol, whichever generation you're from. That's hashtag support sunrise to 53555. Or you can visit our fundraising platform, givebutter.com/support sunrise. Once you click donate, it's super easy to get started there. Remember, beyond legacy giving, your DAF can be used for campaigns and to support the programs and services that matter most to you. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open up our Q&A, and let me stop sharing and remove my spotlight. There, now it's on all of us. We're under the fire, under the question and answer spotlight. I did have just a few came in. The first one says, are donor advised funds only for legacy giving? I think we addressed that, but Mitch, you want to jump on that and then we'll chime in?
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite. So legacy giving should include donor advised funds. So you want to make sure that you have named a beneficiary and that it's a part of your kind of like trust and will planning. But no, donor advised funds are to be used every day in your day-to-day giving. But it's a way to get proactive, and funding that account as a part of your financial management and your own like investment management is the way that DAPs are best used.
Appreciate that. And I know Beverly and I were talking earlier. Beverly, you were saying several of our J pillars, our annual givers here at our organization, do pay with their donor advised funds currently, correct?
Correct.
So, we are already seeing that. And of course, I just put a highlight on our Giving Tuesday campaign for Sunrise on Wheels. And we are encouraging everybody to have a DAF or set up their DAF to do it. And you'll get to test out Chariot's DAF Pay through that platform. The next question in the Q&A, can a DAF donation be made to support multiple programs at an organization? So
you can, if you make, you can obviously answer for the J, but you can make a DAF gift for general operating so that it's supporting, multiple organization programs. If it's something that's restricted to a specific program, you might just want to break it up into multiple gifts, I guess, if that's cleanest. But I think in general, organizations often, it's even better when you don't designate a specific item or program, because they're able to deploy the funds where needed most. It will often, if you're selecting that option, it will often say where needed most as the designation.
Got it. And this, I don't know if this came from the same person, but it's asking about, can you set reoccurring DAF gift for different programs? And they give an example, program 1, Q1, program 2, Q2, etc. So I guess what you just said is it probably, if it was for specific programs that you want to restrict it, doing separate payments. So would that be more likely that they would schedule just a separate support, and if they wanted to be recurring for each of those programs, it wouldn't be like one set amount that hits different programs at different times.
Yeah, it sounds like the best way I would structure that specific example is if you anticipate Q1 of every year supporting the same program, then just set 4 annual recurring gifts for each program. So you have a Q1 gift that repeats each year, Q2, etc. And you can go in and update that in the future if there's something that you want to change too.
Nice.
But I want to add to that too, because it's very important each year that as me, for example, the chief philanthropy officer, or Peter, who's the director of philanthropy, and anybody in philanthropy, you really want to meet with those donors each year, because you don't really want them just to give a gift because you appreciate them very much. So you really want to talk about all the new programs and all the new things going on, because there are a lot of new options. When Peter was talking about Sunrise on Wheels, this is only the second year, and the J, as I said at the beginning, opened its doors in 1988. So this is only the second year we've had that program. So all good organizations, and I'm sure all organizations are fabulous, not for profit, that you really do want to meet with the donors so they totally understand what's going on at your organization. So not just get gifts coming in. The gifts, of course, that will keep you alive is important, but that they relate to your organization, understand it, is really important.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more. Um, I see. Do I have to donate online to donate with a DAF? I think we covered that, but I'll field this one. Short answer, no. DAFs can be scheduled through your online portal. You can contact your manager directly through the various means you have, or if a platform, a nonprofit, is accepting online DAFs, then you could do it directly through the portal using Chariot's DAF Pay. I think that hit the nail on that one. That was the last question. Sorry, Mitch.
Yeah, one thing I was just going to add, Peter, is if that's important to you to be able to make a gift by calling, you should just make sure when you set up a DAF that they're capable of doing that, because many of the DAF providers, you need to log in to a portal, and you make that gift online, whether you're doing it on the nonprofit's website or directly through your portal. So if you are trying to do something different, or you want to have to call someone, I'm not sure why you would want to have to call someone, because it's a convenience to get to log in, but you should just suss out what the level of support is at the DAF before you pick it, if that's a need of yours.
That is a great add-on. I'd imagine there's some people that would still like to walk into the office and talk with their direct person. So I guess knowing who you're working with and who's managing your fund is key when setting that up. Yeah. I don't have any other questions in the Q&A. Mitch, was there anything you would like to add before I pass things off to Beverly?
No, appreciate it. Thank you for me.
Mitch, thank you so much for being part of our first J Philanthropy webinar for the David Posnack JCC. Beverly, I'll turn it to you to wrap things up.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I hope you learned a lot about donor advised funds and why it is one vehicle to consider when you're giving to charity. Nelson Mandela said, "What counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others that will determine the significance of the life we led. Being charitable is one way of living a richer life." Thank you, Mitch, and thank you, Peter, for this educational evening and for giving us one example how we can help others through donor-advised funds. And this is, as we said before, this is our first webinar. We would like to do them quarterly on different subjects to be helpful to everybody to make decisions. And so before you get off tonight, there's going to be a survey that's going to pop up. And so I hope you would help us in putting together more webinars and take that survey. And if you want to get in touch with either Peter or me, right on the screen, you have our contact information. So we appreciate that. We can answer any questions that you have. And for now, I'm going to say good night, and I hope that you had a wonderful, wonderful experience with us.